Hello crafters, thank you so much for coming by my channel. I'm so excited to be here with you. I am getting really excited for Create Crop at Home 2, and my favorite thing about this Create was it was the most fabulous marathon of crafting ever. I loved it, and I'm just so excited to do this next one in May. So I was thinking that we should start doing some marathon crafting training and get ready and prepared for Create Crop at Home. I think if we just practice a couple of things, we'll start feeling confident when we're in the actual crop at home event, and we'll enjoy it. I think it's all about a little bit of enjoyment and not worrying so much about cutting the paper wrong or not knowing what flower to glue where. I think it's just starting to get excited about being together and crafting. So I wanted to put together a little crafting series on little things that I remember that I wanted to practice and start doing. So the first thing I really want to start practicing is mitering corners. Mitering corners is something that gets challenging for me. So especially when we're stressed and trying to keep up with the timing of Create, so here I'm going to do some layouts, and we're going to emphasize on the actual mitering of the corners. So this is the first layout that I'm putting together. I was inspired by the silver because I have a silver anniversary coming up this summer, and I thought that this layout might be something that I could use for that event, maybe get some nice pictures of us. And then I added a bunch of little dies. You can see I have a cluster of dies that are all from the teacup that my sweet friend Annie Penn sent me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is just a technique that I've developed that helps me feel okay about it. And you can practice with what I call ugly paper first. Let me show you the scrapbook Crop at Home Part 1 12-inch dies. And I use this little lacy one right here with the background. Okay. And if you don't have that one, you might have a border die that looks more like this one. And you can use this one. So you just have to cut them out more, and you'll be mitering more pieces of it. So just because you don't have the exact die, use some other dies that kind of will resemble that. Okay, page that I did on mitering corners is this one, and I used the dies that were from 2016. Trimmings is what it was called, and I used it here, and it's this die right here, and I cut it in half this way, like we do that pretty iron gate one a lot. And we started mitering the corners around the frame or mat first, and then we started mitering around the outside. Okay, so before we get started with mitering corners, let me first tell you about what I do to get ready to even start working. I love a clean, organized, flat surface. I use this little plastic, but it is not a cutting tool plastic. And then I have a mat that I use it's actually a cutting mat. It's a dollar store kind of cutting mat. I use that to apply hot glue. I use it to cut. And then you want to think about your cutting tool right here. I have gone through this and cleaned it really good. Got all the little yucky glue pieces that get stuck on our borders in these little creases. You go in here and you kind of clean out your little channel in this little space. Clean your tool up really good. You also want to get to know your cutting tool. I love this type of cutting tool because it is what I call a piercing tool. It has a little tiny blade right here that is a piercing blade. It is not a rotary blade, and this is what I use all the time to make frames, so you can kind of control where the actual piercing part is. So along with keeping all your tools nice and clean, you also want to get nice new blades for all your tools before you start Create. Same thing with your X-Acto knife. With your X-Acto knife, you want it to be nice and sharp. Your little pickup tools or your little tweezers here, you want them to be all nice and clean. You can ruin beautiful paper like that. So we say constantly there's no mistakes in scrapbooking. There's just an extra layer. So you're going to have to be covering up stuff if you do that. This is the little score tool, and I like to keep it nice and clean. You want to make sure you have plenty of wet glue, and you also need to have some tape. Also, pop-up dots. You want to make sure that you have a good supply of pop-up dots. Some gift wrapping tape. just plain old tape, because this is usually what holds my things together on the back of my pages. I use painter's tape to hold my dies down. A little buffing tool or something here, just barely on this area here. You can kind of keep going and doing it more. I just barely did a little bit. So you need a little block, a sanding tool. You can see that. Your double-sided tape in different sizes. This is the kind of different sizes that I use. I know that our Crop at Home package supplies will all come with different things, but these are things that I just like to have stocked up in my stash. I live in the middle of nowhere, so I can't run to Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Joann's, whatever store is nearby, to pick up glue. And we are all cleaned up, and my counter is ready so that we can start mitering fancy corners. Mitering these little things right here would be a good idea, so that we are confident in doing Create Crop at Home. I ran these through, and I used the extra fancy from last year's Crop at Home, the lace one, and the background. And then I did 6 of them, because if we're going to practice, we might as well make a page, is what I'm thinking. Right now, let's talk about what we need. So I am using the tulle paper, and this is a light bluish gray on the back. Okay, this has the flowers. 6 of these. And then the background of this is the tulle that looks like this. So I use this one for the background, and then I use the silver matte for the lace. Okay, so it's the double-sided one, and I'm using the solid as a double-sided paper. Okay, that's what I have here. You can use whatever you want. This is going to be practice for us to learn how to miter, or practice mitering corners. And then what I use is, these are just cheap $1 dollar store mats. And when I can't find them because I'm constantly losing them, I use my cutting mats from my kitchen. Okay, so we need that. I like a metal ruler for this because we're going to be cutting. And a craft knife. There we go, a nice craft knife. So when I look at this paper, I want it to be able to stay the same way. So I'm trying to find the right element. You see how that doesn't look like that matches up where I'm at with this. I'm calling this top area my tops of my page. So then I'm going to take one of, and this is how I miter corners. If you have a better way of mitering corners, please share, because we all struggle with mitering corners. I am taking my tape, double-sided advanced ATG tape, and I am putting tape, or double-sided tape, only on one end. Okay, so here, and I'm going to bring this down. Trying to butt that corner up against and keeping it straight with the paper, because we haven't cut the paper. Do the same thing to the top right here. I'm going to bring it this way. So the leaves are the leaves. The lace is facing inward towards the page. Okay. There we go. Put this edge to edge as best as I possibly can, and these pieces are up, okay? And so what we want to do is bring this one, and then what I like to do just to keep things nice and safe is I used painter's tape, and I put it on my fabric of my t-shirt or something to keep it not so strong. And I'm going to put it upside down with the sticky stuff up, and I'm going to put this on the very edge of the paper, and I'm hoping that this is as straight as I possibly can make it. And then I'm going to bring this part, this is the sticky part of the tape coming facing us, and I'm bringing this part down. Okay, now this side I'm hoping is on the right path, or as straight as it can be. Okay, so now I have that there. So that you can see, I'm going to use my lovely lime green piece here. And I'm trying to make sure that my edges are as straight as they can be. Now what you need is you need your metal ruler, and you want to be in the corner of where you want to be at. And it gets kind of scary the first couple of times you do it. Place your ruler exactly where you want to go. Using your X-Acto knife, you're going to butt up against this, and then you're going to press down. Okay, and you're cutting a couple of times, and you can lift now up. One there, and the piece that you might need to continually cut a little bit more because it's going through 4 sheets of paper. Okay, there we go. So now we remove this part, and we can take this piece off that we cut over here, and then we cut this one off over here. And now we can bring this one, and I'm going to bring this piece down. Okay, and now you bring your little one that you just cut, and it should marry just the right way. Okay, now I like to get my little snipping scissors, and I like to kind of round these little areas that we're leaving behind, and just a little bit so that they're not so sharp. See how this one is just a tiny bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do is get this part. Take this yellow temporary tape off. And I am gluing, again, only this one side, and I'm going to marry it to this one. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now, because we cut this at the same time, those should be marrying just perfectly. And I think that's the trick of it. If we have to kind of cut them at the same time so that they could marry together at the same time. Do you see that? Just like that. So, okay, so now we've got this one completely glued down, and we're going to do the same thing to this side. We have only this paper to the corner of this done first. Okay, now we're going to bring these two together, and we are putting painter's tape, and the sticky part is facing up. And now we're bringing this one down. Okay. And then we're using our fancy dollar store cutting mat, and we're putting it underneath, and you're trying to hold these. Sometimes I don't even use painter's tape, and I just hold them together, but painter's tape is our friend. So now we have this here. Now if you feel like you are scared and you don't want to just cut, you can hold this down, put it where you want it to be. I kind of look at this right here, and you kind of aim, and you can kind of draw a little pencil line for yourself so that you know where you're cutting. Okay, you see how you can kind of barely see your little pencil mark, and I'm coming down. My little ruler is on there. I'm holding this, pressing down, and the mat is between the lace and the background paper, and you press. And there, one is released, and I feel that second one is released also. Okay, so now we remove this part. So now you have two pieces that would marry each other just perfectly because we cut them at the same time. Okay. So there goes those two pieces. Now we remove here. And it looks like maybe right here I should trim just a tiny bit the little point. There we go. And now we lift one up and I put some glue. And I like this ATG tape. It's not super strong. I can kind of maneuver it around a little bit. And then we use this one. And then you kind of push them together. Once you push these two, you put this one and you kind of push it up against this little piece that you want it to marry. And then you can bring this one down. Okay, just like that. You see that? There we go. Look how fabulous that is looking. Okay, so there you have your corners. I know it's hard to see with the glare of the paper that I picked for this. Okay, and now we're going to do the exact same thing again and practice. We have 4 pieces that are married together, and I think they look really good. Okay, here is our spot, and these are very challenging to do because this is the extra fancy lace. So I thought we were learning how to miter corners on the outside, and then I thought, why don't we learn how to miter corners around a picture frame? So I have an extra mat that we were using to practice, and that has ruffles and it's quite elaborate. And I thought, why don't we go ahead and use this mat. Dies, these are dies from 2016, the Griffin from Cutterpillar, I believe. And they are so gorgeous and uber elaborate. And I was thinking, why don't we use them to frame around it? Like we do the gate fence, I'm going to cut it in half. When you're cutting the dies that are already cut, they tend to move, so I will put a little tiny tape right here to kind of keep it in the center. There we go. Keeping that in the center, and then bring that down and let's cut it. Okay, so we have 4 little strips. I like to use a solid when you have a print. So we have solid, print, solid, or it doesn't have to be solid. It can be itty bitty little print is what I also call a solid. When you get your ruffles together and put it down. It's also, when you use the mat around this little ruffle treatment, it also kind of helps make your mat a little straighter because the ruffles are kind of organic. They're not perfect straight. So it's just a tiny little slither of solid around it is what I have here. Now let's practice putting these on the frame. Okay, so since we're working with the mat, and instead of putting the die inside, we're putting the die on the outside edge. So we're kind of changing things up a little bit. I am using a very strong tear tape on the very edge. Then we get our little ornate. And the trick with something like this is you want to picture how much of this do you want to show. So I am using this little tiny bump here on the edge of my paper. So basically that's what I'm using as a ruler, okay? And then we turn it around and we're going to do the same thing for this side. So picture your little ornate die, and you can see that I'm trying to center it from the top to the bottom where the little wave of this is ending at. My little instrument here, and I am trying to also make my little wave to be the same as where it is going to end at. So I'm going to tiny bit little overlap into that little corner. Then I need to move over this way. So I'm going to sit it right on top. I have a tiny little bit of overlap over the gold. Okay, and it's going to happen again on this side. Now let's keep going. So now we know the rule. We want to measure this side. These need to be the same. So over here, you marry them right there is where we put them. So we want these to be also on this side. Okay, now we have that one down. Now we have the last little bit we want to put here. Okay, so now we have this one and we want to do it the same as the top. Okay, so now we have this little area all done. My little fancy cutting tool, my kitchen mat that's full of hot glue. I guess it's not going back to the kitchen anymore. So I'm trying to find where the pencil mark should be here. Where should we cut it? And I start a little bit further in. So on this little, I don't even know what this contraction is called, but here is the line, and I'm going for a parallel with that one so that this angle can be parallel with me. So I am going to cut right into this area, and you need to press really hard down with your ruler. And now we're taking this little cutie pie out from underneath. So there you can see where we have cut and how these two will merge together. Now let's try to do that again on another spot over here. Let's try that again. I'm using this inner piece right here to make it straight with the line here so that my angle or my miter is correct. This is a little more complicated of a cut because it's so ornate. There's no straight lines in it at all. Okay, I think I like that. So we're gonna cut right here. They are so delicate, these itty bitty little lines. There we go. Okay, so now we have this one. Okay, now we're turning it. I think I'd like to do this little snip here and kind of give it a little bit of a rounded edge. There we go. Sometimes you have to tweak those little corners. I feel like sometimes they're okay and sometimes they're not. This is why we are practicing, so you can see and feel it out. Now pressing down onto the table and then pressing. And with this gold, I am telling you, it is very important that your X-Acto knife is sharp. Sharp, sharp, sharp. I don't think mine is sharp enough because I'm leaving little wrinkles on my gold. Okay, and there's this one, and this one has a tiny, again, a tiny little sharp corner, and I'm just gonna kind of add a tiny little wave. Okay, there we go. Now we're turning it over and doing this one. Okay, so now we have our cut right there, and then you can see I have some jagged edges. Trying to see how I can round them out a little bit. I think it's my knife. I don't think my X-Acto blade needs to be re-upped. Okay, so here we have our fancy frame. So it's almost the same, but you need to cut from the inside out. And this frame is going to sit on the very top. Okay, so now we have this one with lots of sticky glue on the back, double-sided tape, ATG. And then we're bringing this one down. I'm using the eyeball method, so forgive me if it's not absolutely perfect. Okay, so now let's bring this one down. There we go. So now you can kind of see exactly what you are missing or what you're not missing. Now, because I have 2 more of these, how about we keep practicing and cut these up and start working them going in. Okay, so I sliced mine in half and I would like to do this going in this direction. So we are being more and more elaborate in our design. Look at that. Now with this, I want it to fit in between these here. So I'm going to be off a little bit. Pay attention to your design and see what is most flattering to your eye. Okay, now let's do this other side. And I have no idea what color this paper, this base paper is. It is basil paper from my stash, and it is who knows how old. I have no idea. There we go. I think it needs to be like that. What do you think about that? Is that not delicious goldness? Yes, I think so. Okay, so now we want to add this piece right about there. And now we want to marry these areas to this design right about there. So let's pay attention on how we're going to be mitering those corners. I'm going to get a little pencil and I'm going to make a little tiny mark, tiny little dots, and that's going to be where I'm going to put my glue stripe down. So I know where to put my stripe of glue here. And I'm staying, there's a tiny little dot, and I am going to use my glue and I'm going to stay above that tiny little dot. Okay, so now we want to pay attention on how we are marrying these 2 little fellers together. Okay, now let's pay attention to this corner. What can we do here to make this look better? Maybe we have to lift these little pieces and kind of weave them into each other. Right there. So our corner here is really right here, but we don't want to use our regular technique. I don't even want to cut anything. I'm just going to leave it just the way it is there. And in order for it to stay just put where I like that, I'm going to use a little tiny dab of wet glue and squeeze it underneath. And then lift this little piece up and squeeze some in there. And then we'll hold that down for just a second. I have been forgetting to put my little needle back in. And do you know that it dries up and it stays and it's ruined? I love these little glue, wet glue containers, and I've ruined 2 of them because I did that. Okay, so now let's look at how we're doing this side. How are we going to marry this side and tuck it into this little area? So definitely we have to remove one of these little things. So let's see, we just get the scissors and I'm snipping off on the areas where the design is less noticeable. And maybe we can lift this little piece and kind of weave that in a little bit, just like that. And I like it just like that. So we're going to put a little tiny bit of glue. So now we are making a background page with these, and wasn't planned, but that's what we end up with. We let it roll. Okay, so now we have this one we're going to add, and it's our last little piece. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add the glue at the bottom line. And then we're going to pay attention to what the design is best looking for in your eye. What should we do? So we've got this part in the center done, and we've pressed this part down to keep it still. Now let's decide what we're doing with the edges of these little pieces. Which one of these is going to weave underneath one or not? Or do we leave it alone? I think what I'd like to do is take this little piece off and just cut off the one little top piece. And that removes some of that bulk. Okay, just that little piece off is all we needed to kind of help with the bulk. And we add a little wet glue to the little edges and bring that down. And now we need to cut two pieces over there because we used them over here. Isn't that funny? Alrighty. Now we're doing the same thing over here. So on this side, we remove just the little head. Remember to remove the same amount from this side so that you're balanced. There we go. That looks just lovely. And then we put a little wet glue on the back of this one. Okay, so now let's cut two more strips and we'll go from there. So for these 12-inch dies, you need the fabulous Luscious Buttery Gold in the 12 by 12 format. So here is, I usually measure my die first before I cut, and I do give it a good 1/4 inch on each side because I tend to think that they move for me. These are the old, not the 3D dies. So I do try to use a new mat, and this is, believe it or not, just 2 days old. And then we're going to add this right there. And the dies are just a little bit too long, so you kind of want to make sure your little dots are in there. You see, I kind of cut this a little bit too small right there. Okay, I like that right there. Look at that. So I did not like the way my pencil marks are showing up. So I'm trying to press it on a different spot. So let's see if this time I hide my pencil marks in the actual glue or the design. I don't know. All right, so here is, with this one, you want to make sure that your little parts here are going in between and you're paying attention to the design of what you're doing. I like that there. And this one is overlapped. And what I'm matching is this one right here. I'm paying attention to match this piece right here to this one. Okay. Okay. So now again, we're looking at mitering the corners. This is what this lesson was about mitering corners, and we went on a completely different tangent. So again, let's look and see where this one wants to weave and where it ends up at. I'm going to cut this little piece off. And I am hiding it underneath this little piece, just like that. So it's kind of it's getting woven into that little space. And let's do the other side. Just like that. I like that. And then here, what we did before is we just took the little head off of one little piece like this to help with the bulk. So with this elaborate little lacy peekaboo holes, we didn't have to do the mitering that we would do. So let's keep practicing some more mitering techniques and some more mitering areas. Let's try that. Okay, so look at that page. Is that not absolutely gorgeous? Okay, so look at what we have here, what we have created with all of these fabulous dies. So this was a solid piece of paper. I just picked it from my little square box of blues. And we have this leftover piece from Ruffles. And we kept adding and adding and adding more of the mitering. That's where we started. We were learning how to miter corners. Now, this wasn't necessarily mitering corners. We were kind of being discreet about how we wanted to, where we wanted our corners to be mitered at. So we kind of did a little overlapping. We mitered this first section, and then we kind of overlapped a couple here because this is such a lacy type of design. I think it works best for that. So let's keep doing some more and keep practicing, okay? I kind of went through my stash and I have these lovely things here. They are the fall borders. They're absolutely gorgeous. They come in all these absolutely gorgeous colors. Since we're going to miter this, I'm going to use a ruler. I want to leave a ½ inch around. And so we're going to put that right there, so that we can kind of see this edge as a border, and we're going to put this part on top. Border is actually a sticker. So we take this part off, okay? And here is the trick. I'm going to take this part off and I'm going to re-stick the ends, because the ends are the parts that have to be mitered. But I need it to stay sitting somewhere. So we're going to sticker part in the middle. But we need to be able to lift the end. So you take your sticker like this. Okay. Okay. All right. And then we're going to do, so what we have done is we have these parts up so that we can miter them, and still in the same technique we've done before. We're going to put this one here. Take the sticker, exposing the middle of the sticker so that we can use it as a sticker, but we're going to still stay protective on the inside. I'm holding this little ruler here so that I can see that I am doing a ½ inch. There we go. So I have to pay attention to how these little birds are sitting, because I think that's going to make a difference. So these little birds are standing up, and then I'm going to move it this way, and I'm going to make sure that those little birds are still standing up in that direction. Put your ruler down so that we're sure that we're using the same size length all the way around. So you see this little bird is standing up, and it's doing the same thing like the other bird is. Okay, now this one on this side is standing up in this direction, so I want to make sure that he is standing up in the same way. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. This is me practicing, so I kind of think it'll make a difference. That's why I'm doing it. Same thing here. We're going to use this. Okay, so here we go. Now here is where we have to miter the corners. And I have the little triangle, a mat, and a sharp blade. A pencil, just in case you want to use a pencil. And we're going to lift this up, and we're going to put it underneath. I'm going to use the orange mat, since you can see that better on film. Put it underneath. And then this is a nice simple strip, and you can see that we are meeting the inside corner right here to the outside corner right here. And if you draw a tiny little line, you can kind of see where that would happen. This is a really nice one to practice. I think this is fabulous. And I'm going to take my pencil mark off because I think it's going to be just beautiful. Right there, right there. Then you get your sharp, brand new sharp cutting blade, cutting X-Acto knife, and you're going to press down on your little triangle so you don't move. And there you have this one. And then you have the one underneath. There we go. Then you have those pieces merging together. And now you remove this sticker and you remove the other sticker right there. And you want to put these two and push them together so that they're together. And then you bring in your sticker. And look how pretty your little miter is. So we're going to do that again. A little plastic underneath. You're going to draw your little piece of triangle. Right here is one. Right here is the next one. Press down with your triangle. All the pieces together. Now remember, these are heavy cardstock. There we go. All released. Okay, and then you press these together. That's your mitering corner. All right, now we're going to do the next one. Exactly the same. These are super cheap. You've got your little fancy geometric triangle that we used in geometry. Still don't know what it's called. I'm sure we can ask Siri what it's called. There's one. Okay, now we have our triangle pieces off. Take off the sticker on the back. Bring these two together. You want to press and make sure they stay together and that they're nice. These are challenging to do because they're stickers. So you need to push them in. Okay, look how beautiful that page is turning out without even doing anything to it. We have transformed this paper. Okay, same thing. Triangle comes in. Right here is one outside corner. Right here's the other corner. And we're going to press. Okay, take this one away. Okay, now we need to put these and hold them together and let them come down, and they will naturally blend in. Use your little score tool to make sure that I did not use double-sided glue on this, so make sure that they're coming in together. And look how fabulous that looks already. Okay, so we mitered corners, and this is what came of it. We mitered corners right here also. And I am going to show you how this page came about. So the last time you saw this page, there was just one mitered corner frame. And now we have this. So come back next week and we are going to continue with this page. And we are going to talk about ruffles right here. These gorgeous, delicious ruffles. Okay, and then we're going to really go even deeper with big monster ruffles covered with gorgeous little finials and gorgeous flowers and more finials and more absolutely gorgeous ruffles. So come back next week and I'll be here with you. Thank you. Bye.